Paul's missionary journeys. A complete breakdown. The Apostle Paul undertook 3 major missionary journeys and a final journey to Rome, covering thousands of miles across the Roman Empire. His travels were instrumental in spreading the gospel, establishing churches, and shaping the early Christian movement. Below is a detailed breakdown of each journey. First missionary journey, Acts 13-14. The Gospel to the Gentiles. Time, AD 46 to 48. Route, Antioch, Syria, Cyprus, Perga, Pisidian, Antioch, return to Antioch, return to Antioch. Key events. 1. Paul and Barnabas, sent by the Holy Spirit, Acts 13-1-3. The Holy Spirit instructs the church in Antioch to set apart Paul and Barnabas for missionary work. The church fasts, prays, and lays hands on them before sending them out. 2. Preaching in Cyprus. Acts 13-4-12. They arrive in Salamis, Cyprus, and preach in synagogues. In Paphos, they confront Elymas the sorcerer, who opposes them. Paul strikes Elymas blind, and the Roman proconsul Sergius Paulus believes. 3. Rejection in Pisidian Antioch. Acts 13-13-52. John Mark leaves them in Perga, later causing division between Paul and Barnabas. In Pisidian Antioch, Paul preaches a sermon about Jesus as the fulfillment of prophecy. Many Gentiles believe, but Jewish leaders oppose them. 4. Facing persecution. Acts 14-1-20. In Iconium, Paul and Barnabas preach, but opposition forces them to flee. In Lystra, Paul heals a lame man, and people try to worship them as gods. Jews from Antioch and Iconium stir up a mob, and Paul is stoned and left for dead, but he survives. 5. Strengthening the churches. Acts 14-21-28. They retrace their steps, appointing elders and strengthening believers. They return to Antioch and report how God has opened the door to the Gentiles. 2. Lesson. The gospel is for all people, but following Christ ofteth suffering. F. Second missionary journey, Acts 15:36-18:22. The gospel reaches Europe. Time, AD 49-52. Route, Antioch, Syria, is Cilicia, Derbe, in Lystra, Philippi, in Thessalonica, Berea, Athens, Corinth, Ephesus, return to Antioch, please 1. Key events. 1. Paul and Barnabas separate. Acts 15:36-41. Paul wants to revisit churches from the first journey. Barnabas insists on taking John Mark, but Paul refuses. They split. Barnabas and Mark go to Cyprus, and Paul takes Silas. 2. Timothy joins Paul. Acts 16-1-5. In Lystra, Paul meets Timothy and takes him on the journey. Timothy is circumcised to help reach the Jews. 3. The Macedonian call. Acts 16-6-10. The Holy Spirit blocks them from going to Asia or Bithynia. Paul has a vision of a Macedonian man pleading for help. They cross to Philippi. Christianity enters Europe. 4. Ministry in Philippi. Acts 16:11-40. Lydia, a wealthy woman, becomes the first European convert. Paul and Silas cast a demon out of a slave girl and are beaten and jailed. An earthquake opens the prison, but they don't escape. The Philippian jailer and his family come to Christ. 5. Opposition in Thessalonica and Berea. Acts 17-1-15. In Thessalonica, Paul preaches, but Jews incite a riot. In Berea, the Jews eagerly study the scriptures to verify Paul's message. 6. Paul preaches in Athens. Acts 17:16-34. He addresses Greek philosophers at Mars Hill, Areopagus. He speaks of the unknown God and proclaims Jesus. Some mock him, but a few believe. 7. 18 months in Corinth. Acts 18-1-22. Paul meets Aquila and Priscilla, fellow tentmakers. He writes 1 and 2 Thessalonians during this time. Lesson. The Holy Spirit guides believers in spreading the gospel to new places. Third missionary journey, Acts 18:23-21:17, strengthening the churches. Time, AD 53-57. Route, Antioch, Galatia, Ephesus, Macedonia, Mysia, Corinth, Miletus, Jerusalem. Key events. 1. 3 years in Ephesus, Acts 19-1-41. Paul baptizes believers in the Holy Spirit. Handkerchiefs and aprons from Paul heal people. A riot breaks out when Demetrius, a silversmith, fears loss of income from idol-making. 2. Strengthening the churches. Acts 20:1-12. Paul revisits Macedonia and Greece. Eutychus falls from a window and is resurrected. 3. Paul's farewell to the Ephesian elders. Acts 20:17-38. He warns them of false teachers and says he won't see them again. Lesson: building up believers is just as important as evangelism. Paul's journey to Rome. Acts 2:-28. Preaching in chains. Time: AD 58-62. Route: Jerusalem, the Caesarea, shipwreck, the Malta, Rome. Key events: Paul is arrested in Jerusalem and appeals to Caesar, Acts 25-11. He is shipwrecked on Malta, but survives, Acts 27. In Rome, he preaches under house arrest, Acts 28-16-31. Lesson: the gospel advances despite persecution. The impact of Paul's journeys. Christianity spread to Asia Minor, Greece, and Rome. Paul wrote 13 New Testament letters. The gospel moved all over the world,